Okay, so we want to create that whoosh effect that's used in dance music just before the drop, the big build-up, the whoosh type sound. And to do that, it's called a filter sweep or a ramp. And we're going to build our own ones from scratch using Ableton. These are the instructions, and we're going to step through how to do that right now. So to help you follow this a bit more easily, I'm going to turn off the I/O, the send, the return, and we'll close the browser as well. So for now anyway. So let's start by creating in a MIDI track. If you don't have a MIDI track, you can insert one here. But in your MIDI track, we're going to create a MIDI clip by double clicking. Once we've done that, we're going to change the length to either 4 or 8. We can now see in the clip view that it's 4 bars long in my case. I'm going to create quite a short one. I can turn off the loop. I don't need it to play on loop. And we'll just use an end to be the end of the bar. So we're going to add a note. We've done this before. And extend that out to make it last for the 4 bars. So we've now got a note that will play, but doesn't make any sound because it's not playing any device. So we need to add a device to this track. So to do that, we'll open up our browser, go to instruments because we want to play an instrument. And the instrument that we want to play today is operator. So double click adds the operator device to the MIDI track, and it's renamed that track now to operator. This is a synthesizer that has 4 oscillators, and we don't have to worry about what that means, but we're just going to turn these off, B, C, and D, and make sure that A is selected so that these controls now control oscillator A. If I press play, you can see that it's making the sound of a sine wave, and you can change that to various different sounds. That's a saw, and we want white noise, so it's noise white. And that's our starting point for what we want to do. Now that sounds really horrible because white noise is just loads of random frequencies playing. But what we're going to do now is we're going to create this build-up effect by controlling the filter frequency. I'm going to turn it down. I'm going to press play, and as it's playing, I'm going to open it up. So how do we record me doing that? So there's 2 ways of doing it. I'm going to show you a more modern way of doing it now, which is to double click on the clip, and we're going to record the automation into the actual clip itself. We've seen automation before. It's an automation envelope, and we've got the envelopes tab, which is this symbol, and it's already selected that I want to use the operator, and because filter frequency was the last thing I selected, it's already selected there. This is what I want to actually control. The red line shows us what we're controlling, so we create a handle, create a second handle by clicking and drag it up. So now when I press play, it's giving me this build-up. Okay. And that's how we create a ramp in Ableton. To use that, we will drag it from there, press tab, and drop it into our arrangement. And if we click back to arrangement, every time that plays, we will now hear that build up. So now that we've got our ramp built, the next thing to do is to add some sound effects to make this even more interesting. And we'll see that in part 2. Okay, so part 2, is adding effects now to a ramp to make it a little bit more interesting. So let's start with adding those effects in the arrangement view. So what I'm going to do is, again, simplify things by turning off the I/O, the return tracks, and even the mixer. And what we'll do is we'll turn on their automation, which is this button. And this is similar to what we saw a moment ago. You have to select the instrument that you want to apply it to. So I want to select the operator instrument and the filter frequency to see the automation that's going on there. Okay. For what we're working on next, we're going to, it's not actually in there, so let's add it in. We're going to add some chorus. Now, you may not be able to find chorus, so to help you, you do a search. And this shows us 4 categories from which we can find the word chorus. So we've got a wah chorus under echo. If we go into pitch and modulation and expand that, we've got a whole load of other choruses. So the chorus ensemble is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to select a classic chorus for now. Chorus is used to thicken up the sound. So we're going to double click, and that adds the chorus effect to the current track. So if I switch it off or on, let's switch it off and see what happens. This is our original sound. So we'll need to and if we turn on the chorus, we can hear the difference. Very subtle. Okay, now to make it a bit more obvious, let's go with vibrato. Change the rate. Even more obvious is if I turn up the rate. And you could automate the rate over time. And you can experiment by automating that parameter. Okay, so if I wanted to do that, we could select the chorus instrument and the rate, and then to change it over time, I can set it here and then have it increase over time. So let's have a listen. So that gives us a variation, and again you can experiment with that by changing different values. Okay, so that gives us our first change, but it kind of cuts off very suddenly. So we want to make that cutoff at the end a little bit less drastic, okay, which is what we'd normally hear. So to do that, we need to add a reverb tail. So to find reverb, again, we'll look at our sound effects, and here's the reverb category. And there's a whole load of different reverbs, and we can choose whichever one we wish. So I'm just going to go with this one, but you can use whatever you want. So again, by double clicking, it's adding that to the device. So we have a synthesizer that plays into a chorus that plays into reverb. So let's have a listen to what happens. So we can hear that nice tail on the reverb, and that's fine. But we can actually do a bit more. We could automate that now by selecting the reverb. And we could have the reverb build up over time. We don't need to have it on all the time. So we could, rather than using device on and off, it's best if you use the dry wet value. So where have we got that? There we go, right at the bottom, dry wet. So we'll start off with the original sound, and then as we get towards the end, we're only going to hear the reverb. So let's have a listen. And it seems to go on for quite a long time, so I want this to finish up pretty pronto. So we'll just have it fade out. Let's zoom in here. I'll just have it fade out nice and smoothly after a bar. So might want to change the angle on that just to so now we've got a nice controllable reverb. Okay, we can do some more. Let's try add some delay, which will create more echoes, and the one we'll use is ping pong. So if we type in ping pong, and let's look at it here in delay and loop, we have a clean delay and clean delay. So let's go into here, and we've got ping pong wide and digital edge. Let's try the ping pong wide first. So we'll double click, it adds it to the end. Now this is after the reverb, which is not a good idea. So what we can show you is you can drag an instrument or an effect along the chain to move its position. So I want the ping pong to happen after the instrument plays, after we've got our chorus to thicken it up. Then I want the ping pong, and then the ping pong will also have some reverb on it. So let's have a listen to that. So you can hear some additional effects in that. If I take that out, select it and press delete, we can add it back in and drag it to the right position. We're going to try the digital edge one, which I think is a bit cooler. And that seems to go on forever and ever and ever. So we're going to have to control that one as well, because it's just keep playing. So let's take a look at that. I like the digital edge ping pong. So what we'll do is we'll select the instrument again, digital edge ping pong. I'm going to automate it. And again, rather than using device on and off, it's best to use dry wet, smoother. And then that way you can say when you want to turn it off. So I want to be finished by, certainly by here. Okay, so let's try that out. So again, we're controlling the sound with the dry and wet. We could also add some EQ. So let's take a look at EQ. So we clear our search again. And if I type in EQ, we can find the category. And I'm going to use EQ8. And I'm going to double click. Again, it adds it to the end of the device chain. And I'm just going to move that back. And I'm going to put this one right at the start. So it's even before the chorus. Okay, so we've got lots of different filters. And for the EQ8, what we're going to do is turn off all these filters to start with. Except for one. And we're going to make that a high pass filter. So let's select just one of them. We're going to make it a high pass filter. So you might remember your filters. So this is the high pass filter. And I'm going to change the frequency to around about 125 or so. And what this does is it cuts out all of the low frequencies that might be in the sound. So you only hear high frequencies. And you can experiment with the filter frequency. Anywhere up to 250 will take out the lower ones that you want. So again, let's try that again. Okay. So you can experiment with adding these audio effects to any track. We've just demonstrated some of those different effects, which are delay, driving color, dynamics, EQ, modulators, pitch and modulation, reverb and resonance, and utilities. We've experimented with adding an effect onto a track, and the track we were using was our ramp. And you can hear that that's quite a difference. Okay.